Hey guys, I'm going to be reviewing Phong Buffalo versus um, ISG for the first for the day one MSI Group A. Let's just jump into it. Rek'Sai ban. We saw Rek'Sai ban in the first game, so it tells me that their jungler probably doesn't play it or their team doesn't like playing it. Um, we see the Jace ban on red side, which is perfectly standard. See the Karthus ban. Once again against Audi. And Irelia pinching out more of the split pushers. Irelia is a good solo flex, so they're probably just trying to get it off so that the first pick doesn't come through. And then we see a Hecarim jungle. Again, going for jungler bans. And a Kali. So perfectly standard bans for the most part, outside of blue side Rek'Sai ban. And obviously Karthus. Rise open here, but I don't think Buffalo plays Rise, or at least they don't prioritize it, so I don't expect it to be picked here. And they actually go Silas, which is a pretty interesting first pick. Can be flexed, of course. Silas, of course, is a pretty interesting pick on this patch. And we see the Jarvan pick up. It's good because Jarvan's counter is gone, so you can just pick Jarvan pretty freely. The Hecarim's also gone, so even though we saw Buffalo play Jarvan and Hecarim and somehow did pretty well. This is the Rise pick, flex, very good pick. Believe it's good in the Silas as well, if I'm not mistaken. So he will probably go where the Silas goes, unless he finds a better lane matchup. Galio pick up here. It's fairly standard. Good with the Silas because he could take the J4 ult, and then now you have setup for Galio. Like guaranteed setup, essentially. So maybe this is kind of what they're going for when they and they pick the Lucian, the one of the priority 80 carry picks. Expect to see AD picked here probably. You already know your matchup. Of course, the Galio can be flexed, but for the most part, it's probably going towards that bot lane. And we do see the Braum get picked up. Braum denies this guy going mid and then picking Lucian Braum second rotation. And then it also just is a better lane into Galio. So far, ISG's drafting. I reviewed ISG's last game, but I wasn't recording, so I kind of know a little bit about their team. LeBlanc, pretty standard ban into Rise, keeping the options open. Expect to see Kalista banned if this guy plays Kalista. I'm not sure if he does. Expect to maybe see... I just expect ADs to get banned. Maybe like Kai'Sa, Varus, that's a good ban too. If they don't pick Kalista, I mean if they don't play Kalista, then there's no real reason to ban it. But it would be pretty good. Of course, you have to think about the Silas gaining setup. I don't know exactly how it works though. With the bind and a Zoe ban. Pretty good. Rise doesn't really like dealing with Zoe because he's short range. Even though the rest of the comp does fine into it. Zoe doesn't really make sense for this comp, so it's kind of a weird ban. It's mostly probably for the lane, and this indicates Ryze is probably going mid. Because they ban two, they might be trying to force the Sylas into mid lane so Ryze can play against him. But when you ban two mid laners like this, I expect the Ryze to want to go mid. Of course, you have counterpick and it can be flexed, but that's more along the lines of my thinking. And these two bans pretty standard. Of course, Callista would be a good pick here, but it doesn't look like he plays it or he doesn't want to play it. So that's that. Because Callista, you're pretty much dealing with short ranges versus short ranges. Maybe he wants something a little longer range to deal with the Galio, deal with the Sylas. Of course, those are options as well. But the Callista would be very good with Braum, Jarvan, and Ryze. Very good combo. So that would be my personal pick. But it just indicates more that he does not play it. This is a little bit of a weird pick. Jarvan could definitely build tank. Ryze could definitely build some kind of MR if he needed to. So going this full AP isn't great. Yasuo is a pretty interesting pick. So we see Yasuo going towards... Well, it can be flexed top or mid, so it's not really a big deal. I don't know exactly how the Yasuo matchup goes into Ryze, so that's kind of an interesting one. And then they're obviously picking Gragas for this combo here, along with the Galio. Also very strong 1-3-1. So they do match up these picks for the most part. Maybe they know something I don't about their mid laner here. Maybe top doesn't play Yasuo and was always going mid. This is a pretty good counter pick into it. Hard to deal with. Has to outscale, essentially. So, pretty interesting team comps overall. I think I give the slight edge to ISG, although the Ezreal doesn't really fit with their comp at all, except for being self-sustaining. But when you have Yasuo, Gragas, like, it would have been similar in the way it self-sustains, because it's not really like they can dive backline anyways that easily. They have to kind of find the opening for it, so that's kind of more why. Don't expect too much to happen here at level 1. Standard 5-point. We have the triple TP on the side of ISG. And as far as jungle pathing goes, you could play to hit bot. Be pretty good. Mid is okay, has easy setup. Top is kind of more of a protect counter gank lane. Don't really need to babysit it all too much. So he places that safe ward because he's afraid to get cheesed. It's not the greatest because now he doesn't know exactly where this setup's going to come from. So I expect him to start blue side here. Pretty interesting start, early game prep. He just bases. I don't know what's going on there really. This is pretty bad for the Ryze. So he's going to start topside. I really hope I don't see the cheese. Although it might happen. Verticaling is much more viable in this kind of game. But I don't think you want the vertical as Jarvan. And I don't really think that the Gragas can force the vertical. Galio's taking quite a bit of harass already. we see a standard pathing. I fully expect the Jarvan to hide because they don't know where he started. They don't know where the Gragas started either, so it's not really in their favor to go for this. See, I don't like this because you know that this is pretty much pixel warded, so you're getting this to keep your bot lane safe, but they don't really have priority, which is why you would want to hit this. So now that you do this, he knows you started here when you had a leashless. The problem with this is that he could have easily just done Wolves Gromp Blue into the scuttle and it would be uncontested. He wouldn't have too much trouble. This Nautilus would be able to help, and then he would be unseen. They wouldn't know which side he started, besides that he gave up this top scuttle. But you can do this pathing here and not go on this top scuttle either. Obviously, the Gragas is looking to get this as well, which I guess the ward is about to run out, so he can't really, but it's fine for him to do, I suppose. It's just like, you don't want to show here on this pixel ward. I don't think he knows the Gragas is top side, which is problematic. But they know he's bot side, so they could play accordingly, and ISG cannot. So again, kind of, like we see kind of a blunder from the prep of ISG. Because he easily could have started topside leashless as well and done something similar. There's no way the Gragas would invade him because he has Yasuo against Nautilus, and Ryze and Sylas are kind of an evenish lane, I believe. I believe Ryze might have some priority. So they pretty much know. They pretty much know that this gank isn't possible for the Jarvan to counter gank. They know he's not on this side, so they can keep chasing. And yet again, we see a jungle problem from ISG. This play isn't possible if he doesn't show on this scuttle, because then you don't know where he is. He could, like, after he does scuttle, you know he has to loop around back this way. Opposed to if he did like this and this, then he can look for this, he can look to counter gank, and the setup would be there. So we're keeping that in mind. It ends up going even-ish, so it's not the worst thing in the world, but I really don't like how this jungler decides to do his stuff. The wave is kind of messed up for top, but he has TP, so it should be fine. Bot lane dies 2v2. This play's possible because he has to react here. So all this stuff happens because this Jarvan shows on Pixel, because now they know his exact path to go here. Opposed to, and they know that when he walks in here, he has to go this way. Opposed to if he just didn't show, and then he comes down to scuttle pixelless, and then this is gankable, and this is gankable all of a sudden, and they don't know if he's here, like, to play for scuttle. And I don't think the Gragas can ever do scuttle when the Nautilus is here in lane. And I mean, bot lane has priority, but it's Galio, so Braum does better in the river fights. It's just like really strange to me how they prep. As rest TP, it's no big deal. But this is a pretty big blunder for ISG. Also think to note it is kind of fortunate that the Jarvan didn't die. Misses the timing on second scuttle. I don't see the drags until they spawn, and knowing this is Inferno now, even more reason to not show on Pixel here, because then if you get this bot gank off, Whoops, my mistake. If you get this bot gank off, your bot's going to have a lead. They're going to shove, recall, and then you can come repeat gank this bottom lane, and then a drag becomes a possibility when you have Nautilus mid who has priority. So, all these chain effect kind of things. Rise Wave is in a pretty bad spot. Jarvan should cover after these wraiths. He does decide to do that. He shouldn't be looking for a gank here. Strictly counter gank or lane reset. Which he does do. This is good by this jungler. This is a pretty interesting decision on how you want to try to reset this. Showing here, not really ideal. So... yeah, that's a pretty big blunder. He should just sit here and not use abilities because they have a chance to win the 2v2. Obviously, he wants to get it in, but you kind of know that this Gragas is on this side of the map. And the showing is a lot worse as well, because if you just sit here, he can reset it on his own. Maybe he can't reset it on his own, and that's why he calls for it. Then they can't start drag not knowing where you are. So it's just a pretty big mistake to be doing that. So I should reset after this wave, which he does. Definitely an interesting decision to not try to reset that wave at bot, but it ends up getting pushed back anyways. Okay, they pick up a free kill there. That's kind of what I mean when I say, it's hard for them to invade or to do anything in the river because this Nautilus has priority. So that's kind of what happened there. This Yasuo walking down is, I guess he thinks it's like a free roam kind of, just due to the pink ward vision they have in the river. But it is a pretty interesting idea. Really interesting that mid room doesn't get called out. Maybe they think they can outplay. Or maybe they think they can get here in time. But the timing is a little off. Especially when they make the play at mid and Jarvan doesn't have R. One thing that would have been interesting is they delay this kill. So they get this kill, then go straight to drag. And the bot lane will be coming up way earlier. They might be able to still do this drag anyways. But it's way harder, in my opinion. Azure doesn't respect it, they just kind of walk into Galio. It's pretty interesting that they don't get it called out. Yeah, you could definitely stall this if you wanted to, and then go straight to drag. Now this is kind of awkward, because the Yasuo's going to be back for the fight. Yeah, they realize it too. Giving up yet another early Infernal. I mean, if these are airs or oceans or anything like that, these mistakes don't mean as much. But because they are those, ocean you kind of want for the rise, and the Ezreal, but it's not nearly as bad as giving an Infernal, especially against a team comp like that. You don't want it on Yasuo. They're just repeating the diving bot. They're going to trade some off of it. Pretty interesting decision. It's also worth noting that they could have traded when they made that play bottom. They could have went for Herald right away. It is worth noting. Hmm. This is pretty. I don't mind any of this. I mean, I think this rise should have reset, but other than that, not much to say. Drag's not up. Herald's the only real objective up, but I'm not even sure which team has priority on it, so probably no team will go for it. So it is somewhat relevant. I'm surprised that they choose to target this bot lane so much. I don't think it's bad, because I think the Sylas will naturally scale, and I think the Yasuo will naturally scale. So this makes sense. It just is weird seeing an Ezreal lane get camped. They're going to play for the scuttle. Kind of disrespecting there. They kind of saw him. I guess he didn't want to go to tower. That being said, this game from Gragas is a lot better than the first game that he played, where he also had kind of a endlessly aggressive style, but this one seems more calculated. One thing I really like what they're doing is they're moving as a team so much. This team shouldn't be able to get all these roams off so much, but because of what jungler did, and because of how mid's playing, it is harder for them. They're getting Herald, they're gonna get it. They're not gonna get platings from it. Pretty interesting that the Sylas doesn't try to get this last. I guess he does get it. It's good. Shove out this last wave. And I would expect to see some kind of new lane assignments. I expect to see the Sylas just walk to drag, actually. Definitely doesn't have to, but Mountain's pretty important. He has TP, so he can always TP to top. He wants to be at the fight right away. This Lucian's kind of low mana, so they might not want to start drag. And this other team shouldn't be disrespected, obviously. They still have a decent mid-game. And they're probably... Gragasol is up, so... You kind of see that Sylas wouldn't miss anything if he walked to drag here. They would definitely get it. It is relevant. Mountain and Infernal are very good. But they also might have this state of mind as, hey, they can't do drag, so we don't have to rush it down. We don't need the drag resets so fast. Which they should want the drag resets fast, because they have drag control the whole game with Galio. Really awkward spot to place the Herald, in my opinion. Would much rather have seen it used at mid lane. The Nautilus doesn't really have great wave clear, and they definitely could have rotated it towards the mid lane. Bot lane will probably go down anyways, as well as it's going to be no man's land as well, so you're going to send your Sylas to the bot lane. They're going to give up top tower. They're not going to give up top tower. We see Sylas TPing up here. This is bad. Okay. He ends up killing two, but it's still bad. Because the rotation, you want to swap him to bot, and you want to swap your... I think you want to send your Yasuo to top, and then you want your duo Q mid lane. Your duo lane mid lane. Is what I would guess. I don't think Yasuo really has a problem with Nautilus anymore. Yeah, it's a long lane, he can get caught out, but at the same time, if you just push up mid here, ward this top side, let the sides be bought, this is complete no man's land here. So if they send too many resources here, they lose all this Baron Vision, which they already lose anyways, but they also lose all these wards in here, which is going to be relevant in a few minutes. Obviously, it is also just to farm and get your solo lanes solo XP. So you see how this guy's sharing XP. You don't really want that. You'd much rather have the Lucian um, get solo XP. Maybe he wants 11, so this is why they kind of decide to do it like this. But I don't think the Lucian... Maybe the Lucian is so strong that the Ryze can't even stand up to him. The Nautilus can't. So it might just be a situation where, hey, I want my AD to have solo farm. Might be a conscious decision. Might just be not really knowing what to do. This play is not... Like, I don't like it. Yeah, you go for a kill, and you're capitalizing on a mistake, but the problem is everyone's resetting. So if they have people right behind, which you know they have some, then this play becomes a lot worse because they know it's only 2 at max. I believe. I don't know what kind of vision they had on the recalls, but definitely. Yeah, that's just a mistake on the Ryze's part. Kind of trying to over-save a little bit. They're taking yet another red. This red is okay to take. There's not really any objectives on the map, like natural objectives, so they have to play for these minor objectives, which is jungle camps, CS, etc. Yeah, it's really weird they're not swapping. Because you want the Galio in the middle so we can affect both lanes. And then you also... This, like, I would say this Lucian and this Yasuo have similar priority in the mid lane about getting it, because I don't think the Yasuo can push up all the way. I don't think Lucian can push up all the way either, but bounces back a lot easier. I think the Yasuo can push in this wave all the way. So, kind of weird that they don't adjust the side lanes. This dive is super awkward for them. Yeah, they lose an objective for 1 kill. I believe they'll trade one back. However, yeah, this play is just super forced. Like, you're going to lose too much of your base. They lose 2 towers for 1. And only a kill. And the kill is not even that super relevant. Because it doesn't go on the Ryze. It doesn't go on the Nautilus. So they still can't really 1v1 the Sylas. So this game is looking pretty bad for ISG. Even though I like their draft. But, I mean, I didn't like the Ezreal pick. But I think they just needed to not do it like this. Now they adjust the side lanes, which is good. You don't even mind side laning until Yasuo hits 16. So you have plenty of time to stall. This game state's kind of hard to break open. Yeah, you probably want the Sylas on bottom. But he doesn't have TP at this time. So maybe you want him towards Baron. I don't think it matters all that much in the grand scheme of things. Second Inferno coming up in a minute. Definitely going to play towards that. I don't think ISG can ever contest. It's going to be very hard. This Greg gets bouncing around lit waves. He takes another buff. He's like 3 buffs up on this guy. I still truly believe it's his early game pathing that put him in this position. They're going to set up for drag here. This guy gets chunked super big because now they're going to feel like they need to react to him. And they do. So now the stretch should be free. That TP was really bad. Trying to oversave at this point. You need to commit to getting farm and not really worrying about what's happening in the side lane. They could have done this so much earlier, by the way, Buffalo. They could have sent these guys, and it would have been the same amount of havoc, like I was mentioning earlier. They do it now, and you see the result. So, kind of slow on how they wanted to do this. They're going to get second Infernal, which is very good for their team. And again, I I don't think they ever should have got the first Infernal. I think ISG definitely blundered that one pretty hard. Okay, now it should be recall into 5 pinks. Fairly standard. Galio should definitely start getting pinks. I think he has some on the map, but they need to move it off from this side. Like, they have 3 pinks on the bot side of the map and a null pink here. I say it's a null pink, but it's not the greatest of pinks. And then you should just get a pink here, and then like maybe one like in the side lane here. I don't really know what's going on here. It ends up working out, but you don't need to push. You didn't need to push in like this at all. Especially without moving up the vision properly. They should clear all this. Clear. They should move it up. They just kind of found a fight where these guys are overextending because they're afraid of Baron, which they're not even prepped for. They should have triple blue trinket here throughout all their laners, because there's no way they can ever face check into this team, because the Gragas ult, instant Yasuo ult into just GG. Like, Yasuo ult into Galio ult, you're just dead. So they can't face check. They should have 3 blue trinkets, and they should farm their base. Having, like, trying to play coming out, you're not going to win at this point. You had advantage early game and a decent scaling, especially with the Rise, but you blunder the 1v1 lanes once again. So when your mid is 1.5 and your top is 0.3, down 50 CS, down 20 CS, but it's against Yasuo, so you should have had some kind of advantage coming forward. It definitely isn't going to be great. These guys are just running down the guys trying to contest the Baron. They get Baron. Recall 1-3-1. Should be the play. Yes, you can argue that you should just 5-man. 5-manning, not great with this comp. I understand that the Gragas wants to be with the Yasuo so they can get the combo off, but that's unnecessary at this point. So just send the Silas to bot, his TP, push 3 mid, push 1 top, and all of a sudden, just get the vision onto the top side for your Yasuo, and this guy can be slippery and get away. Like, he could just play, and if someone comes up here, like all the way up here, this should be the free tower for sure. But if someone does come up here, if you're pushed up mid, you can just cut them off. If they commit to the Yasuo, you're going to get top. So let's say they commit 2 or 3 players to the fucking Silas, then you just run from mid to top, take top lane, and then take inhib, and then you send your Silas mid, and you rotate to bot. Theoretically. Of course, there are other things that could happen, but I believe that's probably the best way to do things. Obviously, you also need the waves to be considered, so the waves have to all crash at the same time when you're doing this 1-3-1. But it looks like they may just 1-4. I'm really concerned with this Silas not recalling. Ends up working out, but again, like, ISG just overplaying. They don't have much to walk on. The game's kind of over at this point, but they should at least try to play theoretically sound and see non-comboed waves and try to make picks. This is what I mean. Like, he's too far up. He has to give this tower, otherwise he's gonna get dove 100%. He doesn't even need to get dove. He's just dead. That's just like fundamental error. Like, that should never happen. They do a pretty good job of crashing at the same time. ISG's just reacting. They're saying we have to go. So this is their last stand. Don't get an ideal combo at all. And this should be triple inhib or end. It's just end. 30-second death timers. And that's that game. pretty clean by Buffalo. Not the worst thing in the world. Definitely a bigger mistake by ISG, for sure. Um, I don't like how they did things at all. I really do not like this jungler's pathing. I've seen 2 games of it now, and each time was absolute dog shit. So definitely don't like that. Um, Fucking his solo lanes because he's showing on wards is not great. They can predict your path if you show in the ward. So, and you definitely get that bot scuttle no matter what, whether you wait for the pixel ward to expire or not. Because you have a pixel ward of your own, so the Gragas can't go in either. And as soon as the pixel ward expires at 250, you just take it yourself. You don't have to rush it. It makes no sense. Bot lane, I don't know. The communication on this team just looks really bad. The Yasuo walked down, and no one said anything. They just got dove. Like, the Galio just walked up. He didn't even have flash. It was just really sloppy. This team looks a lot worse than the other 2 teams that have been in this. Buffalo played great, but they kind of just capitalized on mistakes that ISG was making. They didn't do anything spectacular. They just kind of walked around, did some shit. They still look super uncoordinated. They still look like pretty Fiesta. Don't really understand the top rotations, but hey, they got 2 wins now, so you can't really fault them. But it just looks like they're better mechanical players, a little bit better prep, and that's why they're winning. They don't look coordinated at all. So that's Buffalo versus ISG, game 1, Group A, day 1. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment any feedback, constructive criticism. I know this game, I didn't talk that much over certain things. I'm kind of losing my voice, but this game definitely, it's more on ISG than it is Buffalo. It was more like they lost rather than Buffalo did good things to win. But that's just how it is sometimes. You just capitalize on mistakes. Alright, that's all for me. Peace.